Welcome back for Keeper of the Lost City's Lodestar, chapters 57 and 58. Thank you so much for being here. If you're not already subscribed, what are you doing? Make sure to subscribe, as that really helps me out. And today, let me know, what has been your favorite part of Lodestar so far? I know I'm a little bit behind. Thank you guys so much for sticking in there with me. And here's chapter 57. Do you think he was lying? Sophie transmitted to Mr. Forkle as their group of goblins led them out. Blindfolded again. Back up to the winding staircase. The journey felt twice as endless as it had the first time, and her muscles burned from the incline. It would be a strange lie to tell, Mr. Forkle said. Nowhere in the conversation did we mention Lady Gisella's hairpin. Syra also worked with many different gems. She specialized in ribbons, but she did sell other hair accessories. And she was a flasher, so it's possible she did some sort of light treatment to make Lady Gisella's stone flash blue. But why would she help the Neverseen? Sophie asked. She knew her husband sacrificed himself for the Black Swan. I honestly have no idea. It's possible she was angry with us for not protecting Prentice, or Lady Gisella could have ordered the pin without telling Syra its purpose, or she could have been coerced. The Neverseens certainly aren't above blackmail, and a single mother facing the scorn of our world would be especially vulnerable. I'll have to see if Wiley knows anything that could help us narrow down the possibilities. And I'll need to do more research on starstones. Unless this whole thing is a lie to waste our time, Sophie thought quietly. Also a possibility. But there's too much potential to ignore it. What about all the stuff he said about getting into the Silver Tower? Sophie asked. Do you think the ability he hinted at was a shade? That would be nice, since we already have Mr. Tam searching the tower. But Wiley's assaulters included a Shade, a Vanisher, a Guster, and a Cyanopath. All abilities we do not possess. And Gethin did a brilliant job of blocking me from his memories. The energy in his mind felt different, so much stronger and purer. All this idleness must be building his reserves. I'm assuming the anxiety I'm feeling from you both is related to whatever secret conversation you're having, Orley asked, reminding them they weren't alone. And I'm not foolish enough to expect you to tell me what you're discussing, but I'm hoping you might be willing to answer a few simple yes or no questions. We'll do our best, Mr. Forkle promised. Thank you. So first, I'm guessing you've uncovered some sort of clue with starstones, and that's why the word triggered such a strong reaction? Yes, Mr. Forkle said. We recovered a memory. From whom? Orley asked. That's not a yes or no question, Sophie pointed out. I suppose it's not. This is going to be harder than I thought, Orley admitted. Okay. Do I know the person? Yes, Mr. Forkle said. But the rememberer is less important than the remembered. In the memory, Lady Gisella used a hairpin set that she called a rare starstone to light leap to a never-seen hideout we're currently unable to locate. And she implied that the stone would be able to guide the user to the same location. But as of this moment, the hairpin is missing. Thank you for not making me pry that out of you. 3 yes or no questions, Orley told him. Does this mean you might be open to answering a few others? I'll answer anything you ask, Mr. Forkle said. But know that I'm speaking to you as an ally, not a counselor. I assume that means you don't want me to share the information with the rest of the council. My instinct is to say yes, but I might be willing to be persuaded if you give me a few good reasons why they can be trusted. Our order is not secretive because we enjoy shadows and games, merely because it was necessary to avoid certain hindrances. Fair enough, Orley said. It's definitely my hope for our groups to work freely together. But until we reach that point, I accept the need for discretion. And so you know, every guard here is well aware that anything we've seen and heard today can never be shared. We swore an oath, Reddy chimed in, and the other goblins murmured their agreement. Thank you, Mr. Forkle told them. Back to the questions, then, Orley said, letting several seconds slip away before she spoke. Do you believe Lady Gisella killed Syra? It was the question Sophie had been trying not to ask, and she stopped breathing as she waited for Mr. Forkle's answer. If Gethin wasn't lying, it is a possibility, Mr. Forkle said quietly. But if starstones are important to the Neverseen, it's also logical that Lady Gisella wasn't the only member who utilized them, and it's important to note that Gethin said starstones, plural, and the memory we recovered only displayed 1. So, for the moment, we have no proof of anything. And all those things that Sophie told Gethin during their conversation, Orley said, about a symbol that's also a map of the Neverseens' hideouts, as well as some sort of secret code. I'm assuming that's true? Mostly, Sophie mumbled. I exaggerated how much we know. Dex thinks he knows how the system works, but we won't be able to tell for sure until we find one of the gadgets to test it out. Tam is looking to see if there's one hidden in the Silver Tower, or at least proof that the Neverseen used one, so we'll know how they got in. I'd like to see the symbol, Orley said, and I'd like to show it to Counselor Velia. She's an expert on maps and may notice something important. She's also not the type to ask questions, and we'll keep everything between us. Would you be okay with that? If you believe Velia would be useful for this regard, I'm willing to take you at your word, Mr. Forkel told her. I'll send a record of the symbol as soon as I return to my office. And which office is that? Orley asked. In one of your hideouts, or maybe somewhere closer to home? Am I to infer that you have a theory as to my identity? Mr. Forkel asked. I've had many theories, Orley said, as they reached the top of the stairs. But this one feels right. This is a trap, isn't it? Mr. Forkel asked. Pick my curiosities so that I'll be tempted to slip into your head and check your theory, and if I do, my emotions will give you the answer. I suppose that would work out rather well, Orley told him, but I'd prefer to wait until you're ready to tell me. And don't think I haven't noticed how quiet you're being, Sophie. I'm assuming that means you're already in on the secret. Secrets, Sophie corrected. I know 2 of his identities. Still trying to figure out the others. And that is enough told about me, Mr. Forkel told them. Did anyone else find Gettin's interest in the Peace Summit to be concerning? Yes, Orley admitted. Even without physical contact, I could feel how desperate he was for information. Any idea why? Sophie asked. From the glimmers I caught in his mind, Mr. Forkel said, I suspect the Neverseen once had a plan in the event of an ogre summit, and he believes it will allow him a chance to escape. All of the goblins left. Don't underestimate the Neverseen, Sophie warned them. Don't underestimate us, Lefty told her. We have security beyond anything anyone could prepare for. But perhaps it might be wise to add a few additional measures, Orley decided. Are you allowed to tell us when the summit is? Sophie asked. No, but I suppose it would be wise for you to prepare. The summit is scheduled for 2 weeks from tomorrow. You'll receive official notice a week prior. The goblins spent the rest of their trek discussing ways to organize their patrol. And soon enough, they'd reached the main courtyard. I expect a thorough update, Sandor told Sophie, as her blindfold had been removed. Her belongings returned, and they'd regrouped outside the castle's gates. I will, she promised, but let's wait until we're back at Havenfield. That way I can explain it to everyone at the same time. I'll update the collective, Mr. Forkel told her, and perhaps we should regroup tomorrow to discuss the best course of action from here. Please keep me in the loop, Orley told them, and I'll be sure to do the same. This is a time when working together is in all of our best interests. Indeed, Mr. Forkel said, offering a quick bow before raising his pathfinder to the sunlight and leaping away. Thank you again for arranging this meeting, Sophie told Orley. Orley gave her a weak smile. I hope it was worth it. Sophie made the same wish, as she took Sandor's hand and lipped them both back to Havenfield. So, should we stop? Sandor snapped, pulling her behind him. He unsheathed his sword and spun around, sniffing the air. Something's wrong. Very wrong. Sophie had no idea what could have him so freaked out, and then she saw it. Streaks of red in one of the pastures, splashes of it in another. Fresh blood. Chapter 58. Sandor covered Sophie's mouth and hefted her over his shoulder to prevent her from running away. But she had to find Grady and Edeline. What if they... You must stop struggling and do exactly as I say, Sandor ordered, charging toward the grove where the gnomes lived. I need to get you somewhere safe so I can search the grounds for your family. And I need you to be quiet because I can't tell what we're dealing with. He kept his sword raised, moving so fast the scenery blurred. Sophie tried to keep calm, telling herself the blood belonged to one of the animals, until Sandor slowed and uttered a string of goblin curse words. She strained to follow his gaze and found a bloody ogre sprawled across the grass. dead. She screamed and twisted in Sandor's arms. He was no match for her adrenaline-fueled panic, and she took off into the pasture, shouting her parents' name as red rimmed her vision while she ran. Her thudding heart pounded almost as hard as the rage pulsing inside of her, straining against the tangled threads she'd knotted around it. She pressed her hands against her ribs, willing the emotions to hold steady. She needed to save them for whatever was coming. She passed another dead ogre in the next clearing, then 2 more. The next body she found was a goblin, with long curly hair. Grady's bodyguard. Sophie's voice turned into a ragged wail as she collapsed to her knees, unable to get back up until someone grabbed her shoulders. And instincts took over. Her knotted emotions ripped free, and she shoved the darkness away from her in sickening waves, pummeling her attacker over and over. She could have raged forever, but strained, weak words brought her out of the frenzy. When her vision cleared, she found Sandor collapsed on his side, teeth gritted, his body shaking from her inflicting. "It's okay," a soft voice said behind her. "The ogres are gone." Sophie spun around and found Florey standing with a sack of panax blossoms. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "They told me to wait for you to make sure you didn't panic, but I thought I'd have more time to gather medicine." Sophie couldn't get her brain to form words as Florey moved to Sandor's side, placing a blossom on his chest and humming a soothing melody while she mopped the sweat off his brow with the edge of her long hair. Sandor's features relaxed as Florey worked, the pain fading from his eyes. "Where are they?" Sophie managed to whisper. Florey knew who she meant. "They're safe. I'll bring you to see them as soon as Sandor's ready." She said other things, but Sophie's brain was on a never-ending repeat. Safe, 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 safe. Seconds crawled by, or maybe it was even minutes. Eventually, Sandor raised his shaky head. "At least I know you can protect yourself," he told Sophie, offering a weak smile. Sophie struggled to apologize, but Sandor waved the words away. "My only concern is your safety," he promised, his watery eyes focused on something in the distance. Sophie didn't have to turn to know he was looking at Brielle's broken body. "Come on," Florey said, taking Sophie's hand. "I'll bring you to the others." She sang an entrance into the ground, and Sandor and Sophie followed her into the earth. The tunnel was damp and dark, and pleasantly warm as Florey tangled their feet in the roots. "Brace yourself," she warned, shifting the cadence of her melody. The roots obeyed her command, carrying them faster, 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 far away into the darkness. Florey filled their journey with soothing songs, trying to keep Sophie calm and steady. But the icy terror didn't thaw until they emerged in a small hollow surrounded by towering red-barked trees. Grady and Adeline were there, dirty and bloody but strong enough to throw their arms around Sophie as she crashed into them, holding on with all the strength she had left. The sobs hit then, ringing out, the rest of the fear clouding her mind and unleashing a tidal wave of questions. "What happened? Are you hurt? Has someone called Elwyn? Where are we? How did you get away? What's going on? Why are there ogres?" "We're going to be fine," Grady promised, as she reached up to wipe a scratch on his neck. "Adeline and I were very lucky." He glanced at something behind her, and Sophie whipped around to find a dozen gnomes crouching around 2 more bodies. Florey was busy working with them, smearing their wounds with crushed panax petals. "They're going to be okay," Adeline whispered, holding Sophie tighter as they studied the unconscious, blood-streaked faces of Caddock and Lady Cadence. Laura and Mitchia went to get Elwyn. "They should be back any minute." "Did you sedate them?" Sandor asked, crouching next to Caddock and checking the pulse on the goblin's bruised throat. "No, that's from the shock and the blood loss," Adeline told him. "But their breathing is strong, and their hearts are holding on steady. They just need medicine and lots of rest." Sophie nodded blankly, trying not to look at all the red. "I saw Brielle." Grady turned away to wipe his eyes. "She saved me. Took on 4 ogres at once so I could get to Adeline. 3 of them fell by her sword, but the 4th was faster." Something cracked behind them. Sophie turned and found Sandor clutching his bleeding fist, and a giant dent was punched into one of the trees. "He was right about his warnings," Adeline mumbled. "The Neverseen finally came after us." "You saw them?" Sophie asked. She'd never forgive Keith if he'd been there. ever. Not even if he'd stood on the sidelines. No, Grady said, but one of the ogres shouted, "The pyrokinetic is waiting." And I don't know if he meant Brant or Finton, but it doesn't matter. What matters is their plan failed. Sophie repeated his last words, trying to find comfort in them, but all she could think was, this isn't over. Wow. That concludes chapters 57 and 58. Come back tomorrow for 59 and 60.